Basic misconceptions of science. The cardinal error of science lies in shutting the Creator out of the Creator's creation. This one basic error topples the whole structure, for out of it all of the other misconceptions of light, matter, energy, electricity, magnetism, and atomic structure have grown. If science knew what light actually is, instead of the waves and corpuscles of incandescent suns, which science now thinks it is, a new civilization would arise from that one fact alone. Light is not waves which travel at 186,000 miles per second, which science says it is, nor does light travel at all. The light of incandescent suns is but an effect of one of the two equally opposed electrical pressure conditions which interweave this universe into visible solids and liquids surrounded by invisible gases of space. These two opposite electrical conditions, which form the basis of the constitution of matter, are the compressed condition of gravity pressure and the expanded condition of radiation pressure. These two electric conditions are the equal and opposite pressures which make motion imperative and without which motion is impossible. The positive electric condition compresses large volumes of light waves into small volumes by winding them up centripetally into spiral vortices by thrusting inward from without. That is what gravitation is. The negative electric condition expands small volumes of light waves into large volumes by unwinding them centrifugally into voiding equators where matter disappears. That is what radiation is. Radiation thrusts outwardly from within to depolarize matter and void motion. The light of suns and the dark space are but two opposite conditions of the same thing. They interchange constantly. Each becomes the other sequentially. Science excluded the Creator from its consideration because of the supposition that the Creator could not be proven to exist by laboratory methods. This decision is unfortunate, for God is provable by laboratory methods. The locatable motionless light, which man mistakenly calls magnetism, is the invisible but familiar light which God is, and with it he controls his universe, as we shall see. Misconception of electromagnetism. The Einstein theory of the constitution of matter conceives the universe to be one great ocean of electromagnetism, out of which and into which flow the streams of gravitation, matter, and energy. Radiation, the equal and opposite mate of gravitation, without which gravitation is impossible, is entirely ignored in this fantastic and unnatural concept. Equally fantastic is the claim of this theory that it is possible to have gravitation without matter, and for space to exist without gravity, or without matter. The weak point in this strange theory is the fact that electromagnetism is not an existent force in nature, nor are there electromagnetic fields or magnetic fields. Wave fields are electric, exclusively electric. Electricity is the only force which God makes use of to create the universe, and the only two tools God makes use of for creating. His universe of matter and motion are two pairs of opposed spiral vortices. One of these opposite pairs meets at apices at wave amplitudes to create spheres of matter, and the other opposed pair meets at the cone bases upon wave axes to void both matter and motion. See figures 129 and 130 on page 162 in A New Concept of the Universe by Walter Russell. These two pairs of opposed electric spiral vortices are the basic units which construct all matter. Together they form the electric waves of motion which create the various pressure conditions which are needed to produce the many seemingly different elements of visible and invisible matter. Electricity is divided into two equal and opposite forces which thrust away from each other to build the polarized universe. When inability to thrust away from each other takes its sequential turn in the pulse of the universal heartbeat, depolarization voids all opposition. Thus, the universe consists of cycles of life followed by death, growth followed by decay, and generation followed by radiation, each expressed simultaneously and repeated sequentially forever without end. That which science calls magnetism and believes to be a force which has the power of lifting tons of steel, is God's still light, which balances and controls the equality of electric division, but electricity alone performs all of the work of this universe. The magnetic lines which control the universal balance performs no work whatsoever. A bar magnet picks up nails because of the electric current which divided that steel into its activated, polarized conditions, and not because of its focal poles of stillness which center its two activities. Even though the electric current has been withdrawn, the steel retains its electric activity for long periods and acts as though the current still remained. Magnetic light control might be likened to the rudder of a ship, which controls the direction of the ship's motion without in any way motivating that motion. It might again be likened to the fulcrum, which extends its power of expression through the motion to a lever, without any way acting to motivate and express the motion of that lever. God's still magnetic light is the fulcrum of this creating universe. Electricity is the two-way lever which extends from that fulcrum to give the universe its pulsing heartbeat of simulated life-death sequences. Wherever God's light appears in matter, there stillness centers motion, but there is no motion at that point. The center of gravity in a spherical sun or earth is one locatable point where God's light is. Likewise, the two still centers of north and south spiral vortices are other locatable balancing points of control. Likewise, the shaft which connects all pairs of opposed poles is an extension of stillness from the zero of wave beginnings to the zero of wave amplitudes, and the return of motion to the zero of its beginnings in the stillness of its boarding place on its wave axis. This is a universe of light at rest, from which two opposed lights of motion appear to manifest the idea which is eternally sealed in the light at rest. Misconception of energy. Failure to recognize that the universal body of moving matter has been created by some power outside of itself has led science to conclude that the energy which created matter is within itself. Even more erroneous is the conclusion that energy is a condition of matter, such as heat. This fallacy has led to the conclusion that the creation will disappear when heat energy runs down. The first and second laws of thermodynamics are built upon this obviously wrong conclusion. The universe will never run down. It is as eternal as the Creator is eternal. The universe of matter in motion is a mind-conceived, mind-creating body. As such, it is as much a product of mind as a pair of shoes, a poem, a symphony, or a tunnel under a mountain is a product of mind which conceived it, and motivated the action which produced it as a form body of matter. The poem is not the poet, however, nor is the symphony its composer. In a like sense, the universe is not its own creator. Whatever qualities or attributes there are in any product, whether it be adding machine or a universe, have been extended to that product by their creator to manifest qualities, attributes, and energies which are alone in the creator of that product. Nor is the idea which manifests matter within matter. Idea is never created. Idea is a mind quality. Idea never leaves the omniscient light of mind. Idea is but simulated by matter in motion. Idea never leaves its invisible state to become visible matter. Bodies which manifest idea are made in their image of their creator's imaginings. Every creation, whether of God or of man, is an extension of its creator. It is projected from him by a force which is within its creator, and not in the projected product. All of the knowledge, energy, and method of creating any product are properties of mind alone. There is no knowledge, energy, life, truth, intelligence, substance, or thought in the motion which matter is. Electric matter is but a mirror which reflects qualities outside of itself to simulate those qualities within itself. In the mind of any creator of any product is the idea of the formed body which mind desires to produce. Also, the knowledge, energy, and method of production are in the mind of the creator of that product, and not in the product. The architect does not say that the energy, idea, or construction methods are in the temple of his conceiving, nor should man say that they are in the temple of God's conceiving. To thus claim that energy is a property of matter is to deprive the creator of his omnipotence and omniscience. The entire universe manifests power, but the universe is not the power which it manifests. Not one particle of matter which constitutes the material body of any product can move of itself. It can move only through the desire and command of the mind of its creator extended to it electrically. The power of attraction and repulsion, which scientists mistakenly attributes to matter, are electrical effects performing their one and only function of dividing an equilibrium into two opposing conditions, which extend equally from a dividing equator. The magnetic light controls the balance of these two opposing conditions, which interchange two ways in their endeavor to void their opposing conditions. But the stresses and strains which seem to make matter attract and repel matter are electric effects. Electric effects of motion can be insulated from each other, but the magnetic light of the creator, which causes those effects, cannot be insulated from matter by matter. All matter is electric. Electricity conditions all matter under the measure control of the one magnetic light, which forever balances two electrically divided conditioned lights of matter and space. Divided matter strains to find balance in the zero of equilibrium from which it was divided. The senses of man are mightily deceived by the illusion of appearance which cause him to conclude otherwise. Newton's apple was not attracted to the ground by gravitation. The high potential condition of that solid apple sought a similar high potential condition. That is to say, it fell towards the earth to fulfill nature's law of like seeking like. Had Newton sat with the apple for a week or two, he would have seen that the apple would rise unto the heavens as a low potential gas, seeking a like potential position to balance its electrically divided state. The rising of the decaying, expanding apple again fulfills nature's law of like seeking like. All polarizing bodies add to their densities and potentials. The apple which fell to the ground was a polarized body. All polarized bodies must reverse their polarities and depolarize. Then they lose their densities and potentials. The depolarized apple returned to the zero of its beginning. The Newtonian law is in this respect invalid because it accounts for but one half of the apple's growth-decay cycle. This is a two-way universe of opposed effects of motion, not a one-way universe. Misconception of substance and matter. Sense of observation has led to the erroneous conclusion that there are 92 different substances of matter. The universe is substanceless. It consists of motion only. Motion simulates substance by the control of its opposing wave pressures of motion, which deceive the senses into seeing substance where motion alone is. The senses do not reach beyond the illusion of motion, nor do those who believe that they can gain knowledge of the secrets of this vast make-believe universe even faintly comprehend the unreality of this mirage of polarized light in motion which they so firmly believe is real. Motion is two-way, for all motion is caused by the division of an equilibrium, and its extension in two opposite directions to create the two opposite conditions of pressures necessary to make motion imperative. One of these two conditions of electric motion thrusts inward towards a center to create a centripetal vortice to simulate gravity. On the other side of the dividing equator, the other condition, thrusting outward from a center to create a centrifugal vortice to simulate vacuity. Moving waves of oppositely conditioned matter simulate substance, but there is no substance to the motion which simulates idea in matter. If a cobweb could move fast enough, it would simulate a solid steel disc, and it could cut through steel. If such a thing could happen, it would not be the substance of the cobweb which cut through the steel, it would be the motion which cut it. Fast-moving short waves simulate solids, while slow-moving long waves simulate the gases of space which surround solids. Waves of motion are substanceless, however. They merely simulate substance. Motion itself is controlled by the mind of the creator, who uses it to express his desire for a simulating idea of mind by giving it a formed body. There is no other purpose for motion. Desire in the light of mind for creative expression is the only energy in the universe. All motion is mind motivated. All motion records mind thoughts in matter. All matter is but pressured conditions of motion. Varying pressured conditions yield varying states of motion. Varying states of motion are what science misinterprets as the elements of matter. Varying pressures in a wave are tonal. Each octave wave there are 4 pairs of tones, each of which has the same relative position in its octave color spectrum as it has in its octave of chemical elements. Waves are therefore electrical pressured conditioned octaves of tones. The secret of the ages. Step by simple step, I will briefly unfold the supreme mystery of all time to enable science to void the confusion which has arisen from its inability to relate the reality of the invisible universe to its simulation of reality, which has so regrettably deceived the senses of observers for all time. I do this not only for science, but for the great need of religion, which so sorely needs a God who can be known by all men as one, to replace the many imagined concepts of God which have so disastrously disunited the human race. No one, save the few mystics of long ages, have ever known God or God's ways. Neither has mankind yet known the meaning of love upon which this universe is founded, nor of life which the electric universe simulates in never-ending cycles, nor of cause of the effects for which man so heavily pays in tears and anguish for his not knowing, nor of the constitution of matter, nor of God's invisible processes in the creation of pressures for conditioning matter. The long-heralded peace which passeth understanding awaits for science to tear away the veil which has for so long hidden the face of the Creator. Religion can be united as one only by dispelling the ignorance which now cloaks the faith and belief God of fear, which has bred so many intolerant groups of unknowing men. We speak familiarly about the spiritual invisible mind universe of the Creator, and we speak with equal familiarity about the physical universe of matter which we call creation. But the world has not yet known either of them separately, nor their unity as one to sufficiently define either of them scientifically. I will now do this as simply as possible in order that the physicists of tomorrow can know and comprehend the universe as one whole, instead of sensing it as many separate parts which he will never be able to fit together. The undivided light. The basis of creation is the light of the mind which created it. God is the light of mind. God's thinking mind is all there is. Mind is universal. Mind of God and mind of man are one. This eternally creating universe, which is God's eternally renewing body, is the product of mind knowing expressed through mind thinking. In the light of God's mind is all knowledge. All knowledge means full knowing of the Creator's one idea which is manifested in His creation. The undivided and unconditioned light of mind is an eternal state of rest. The invisible light of the Spirit is the equilibrium of absolute balance and absolute stillness, which is the foundation of the divided and pressured conditioned universe of motion. In that light there is no change, no variance of condition, no form and no motion. It is the zero universe of reality. In it are all the mind qualities of knowledge, inspiration, power, love, truth, balance, and law, which are never created, but are simulated in moving quantities in the divided universe of moving waves which we call matter. The light of mind is the zero fulcrum of the wave lever from which motion is projected. Its zero condition is eternal. The unfortunate error of science lies in assuming that the power which belongs solely to the fulcrum of light at rest is in the motion of the lever which simulates that power. The divided light. In the light of the Creator's mind is desire to dramatize His one idea by dividing its one unconditioned, unchanging unity of balance and rest into pairs of oppositely conditioned units, which must forever interchange with each other to seek balance and rest. Desire then multiplies those pairs of units into an infinity of eternal repetitions to give form bodies to the Creator's imaginings. All form bodies are created in His image. Through the expression of desire and light, this universal drama of cause and effect is created as the product of mind knowing divided by mind thinking. Cause is eternally at rest in the balanced unity of undivided light. Cause is one. Effect is eternally in motion to seek balance and rest in the centering equilibrium of the two opposed lights of this divided universe, which it finds only to lose. Effect is two. The light of cause, divided into two opposed lights of effect, is the one sole occupation of mind, which we call thinking. Mind thinking sets divided idea into two-way opposed motion to produce the effect of simulating idea by giving form to it. Form bodies are but pressured conditioned motion, however. They are not the idea which they simulate. The electric universe of simulated idea. Mind thinking is electric. Divided electric thought pulsations manifest creative desire in wave cycles of motion, which forever vibrate between the two electric thought conditions of concentration and decentration. Concentrative and decentrative sequences of electric thinking produce the opposed pressures of compression and expansion, which form solid bodies of motion surrounded by gaseous space in one wave pulsation, and reverse that order in the next. Concentrative thinking is centripetal. It focuses to a point. It borns gravity. It charges by multiplying low potential into high and cold into heat. Narration. Decentrative thinking is centrifugal. It expands into space. It borns radiation. It discharges by dividing high potential into low and heat into cold. All motion is a continuous two-way journey in opposite directions between two destinations. One destination is the apex of a cone in an incandescent center of gravity. At this point, motion comes to rest and reverses its direction. The other destination is the base of a cone encircling a cold evacuated center of radiation. At this point, motion again comes to rest and reverses its direction from centrifugal to centripetal. So long as the Creator's mind divides His knowing by His thinking, just so long will the two-way motion continue in sequences of cycles to record God's imaginings in forms of His imaginings. God being eternal, likewise, His universe is eternal. The belief of science that the universe had a beginning in some remote past, as the result of some giant cataclysm, which we call the Big Bang, and will come to an end in some future remote period, is due to not knowing that waves of motion are the thought waves of the universal thinker. The journey toward gravity simulates life, and the opposite journey simulates death in the forever repeating cycles which, together in their continuity, simulate eternal life. The two opposite pressure conditions which control life-death cycles of all bodies are the negative condition of expansion, which thrusts outward, radially and spirally, from a centering zero of rest to form the low potential condition which constitutes space, and the positive condition of compression which thrusts inward toward a centering zero of rest to form the compressed condition of gravity which generates forming bodies into solids surrounded by space. Desire of mind expresses its desire through the electric process of thinking. Thinking divides idea into pairs of oppositely conditioned units of motion which record a simulation of idea into thought forms. Sir James Jeans has suggested the possibility that matter might be proven to be pure thought. Matter is not pure thought, but it is the electric record of thought. Every electric wave is a recording instrument which is forever recording the form of thought in wave fields of matter. All thought waves created anywhere in any wave field become universal by repeating them everywhere. Thought waves of expanded and compressed states of motion are fashioned into moving patterns which simulate the forms of the Creator's imaginings. All form bodies thus created are made in His image. This division of the undivided light and its extension into oppositely conditioned states of motion is the basis of the universal heartbeat of pulsing thought waves, which seemingly divide the one whole idea into many ones. Interchange between oppositely conditioned pairs of thought recording units is expressed in waves of motion. This is a thought wave universe. Thought waves are reproduced throughout the universe at the speed of 186,000 miles per second. It is commonly believed that the incandescence of suns is light. Incandescence simulates light in this cinema universe of a macroscopic make-believe, but incandescence is not light. It is but motion. Incandescence is merely the compressed half of the one divided pair of opposite conditions which constitute matter and space. The black vacuity of cold space constitutes the expanded half. Together these two are as much mates as male and female are mates. Each is equally essential to the other. Each finds balance in the other by voiding each other's unbalance. These two conditions and directions of compression and expansion are necessary for the two-way interchange of motion, which performs the work of integrating and disintegrating the living, dying cycles of opposed motion which this electric universe is. The incandescence of compressed matter and the black vacuity of expanded matter are the two opposite polar ends of nature's bar magnet. Nature does not make her bar magnets in the form of cylinders as man does. She makes them in the form of cones. In this radial universe no other form of motion than the spiral form of cones is possible. This means that the negative end of nature's magnet is tens of thousands of times larger in volume than the positive end, although the potentials of each end are equal. It also means that the equilibrium plane which divides nature's magnet is curved, while that same plane in a cylindrical bar magnet is a flat plane of zero curvature. The Coulomb law misconception. The Coulomb law statement that opposites attract and likes repel is not true to natural law. Opposite conditions are opposite conditions. Likewise, they are opposite effects caused by each thrusting in opposite directions. It is not logical to say that opposites fulfill any other office than to oppose, nor is it logical to say that opposing things attract each other. In all this universe, like conditions seek like conditions. Gases and vapors seek gases and vapors by rising to find them. Liquids and solids seek liquids and solids by falling toward them. Radiating matter seeks a radiating condition in this outward direction of radiation. Gravitating matter seeks the inward radial direction of condensation to find its like condition. Opposite poles of a bar magnet thrust away from each other as far as they can go. That is the very purpose of the electric current which divides the universal equilibrium. If opposite poles attracted each other, they would have to be together in the middle instead of pushing away from each other to the very ends. When depolarization takes place, the poles seem to draw closer together, but that is because of their lessening vitality. They still thrust away from each other until devitalization is complete. When motion ceases, the matter which it manifests ceases to be. Scientific observers have been deceived by their senses into thinking that the opposites attract each other because of seeing the north pole of one magnet pull towards the south pole of another magnet. The fact that opposite polarities void each other when thus contacted has not been considered as a factor in this matter. It is a fact, however, when two opposites are thus brought together by their seeming eagerness to contact each other, both poles cease to be. Each one has voided the other as completely as the chemical opposites sodium and chlorine void each other and leave no trace of either one after their contact. If the Coulomb law were valid, it would not be possible to gather together 1 ounce of any element. The electric universe of simulated energy. In order to know more dynamically what electricity really is, I will define it. I will then amplify my definition by example. Electricity is an effect of strain, tension, and resistance caused by the energy of desire in the light of mind to divide and extend the balanced unity of the one, still light of universal mind into pairs of many divided units of thinking mind. When electric strains and tensions cease to oppose each other, electricity ceases to be. Electricity is dual action-reaction. When dual action-reactions cease to vibrate, electric effect is voided by the one universal condition of rest. Sound vibrations of a harp string are an electrical effect. The electrical vibrations of sound are a division of undivided silence. When sound vibrations cease, silence has swallowed them up by voiding them. The idea of the silent harp string note eternally exists. Electrical division into sound manifests the idea, but the idea belongs to silence, and to silence it returns for reborning again as a simulation of idea. The two electric pressures formed by the division of a universal equilibrium have separate offices to fulfill. The negative pressure expands to create space by dividing potential and multiplying volume. Conversely, the positive pressure contracts to multiply potential into solids by dividing volume. Electricity thus performs the work of the world by straining towards separateness and multiplicity of units, and also by relaxing from such resisted strains and tensions until motion ceases its vibrations by withdrawing into the universal stillness. The only work performed in the universe is the work caused by the strains and tensions of electrically divided matter in motion. Matter moves only to seek rest and balance. Matter neither repels nor attracts. All matter which is out of balance with its environment, volume for volume or potential for potential, will move only to seek rest in an equipotential environment of equal volume displacement. That is why air or ocean currents move, and for no other reason than to seek their lost equilibrium. And while they move, they will perform work, and the measure of their power to perform work is the measure of their unbalance. Earth's tides are not pulled by the moon. Curvature in the pressures of their wave fields which control their balance is the cause of that. And that explains why tides are thrust away from the face of the earth opposite to that of the moon, as well as being thrust toward the moon on its near face. When tides rise, they will perform work, and they will also perform work when they fall. But work will cease being performed the moment of the motions of either rising or falling ceases. Likewise, a waterfall will perform work when falling, but not when waters cease to move. A storage battery will perform work while being charged with increasingly high potential pressures which oppose each other, and it will perform an equal amount while it is discharging to seek the equilibrium pressure which will unite the divided two. When fully discharged, it will cease performing work because it has found balance in its zero and can no longer move. In a live electric battery, or in a chemical counterpart such as sodium and chlorine, there are three equators, the central dividing one being the fulcrum of the two extended ones. When the two extended equators of the live electric battery withdraw into their balancing one, the battery is dead. They have found their eternal stillness. Likewise, their chemical counterparts have ceased to exist as separate elements when they withdraw into their sodium chloride fulcrum. Even though sodium and chlorine have disappeared, they are still there, for they will as surely reappear as night will follow day. To recharge the battery, the one dividing equator has to be extended in opposite directions until there are again three before motion is possible. Motion is then not only possible, but imperative. The heartbeat of the universe is eternal. So long as the universal heartbeat continues, every divided pair and every unit of every divided pair will reappear to express life as surely as it will again disappear in eternal repetitions to express death. Work is not performed by the attraction of matter for matter, nor because of a condition of matter such as heat, which is presumed to be energy. Work is performed solely because the electric current which divides a motionless condition into two unbalanced conditions sets up two oppositely straining tensions of unrest, which must move to release those tensions. The duality of electric effect. No effect can be produced unless there is an equal opposite effect to work with it. Electrical workers are two, which move in opposite directions to perform that effect called work. Effect is therefore two-way, just as work is performed two ways. The two electrical workers are like two men on opposite ends of a double saw which pull and thrust in opposite directions from opposite ends to perform the work of sawing down a tree. Or they are like two compression and expansion ends of a piston which pull and thrust in opposite directions, sequentially to move and to perform work, while they move in either opposed directions. Each end of the saw or piston is helpless without the other. Heat, for example, is one end of the cosmic piston, cold is the other. Just so long as these two conditions exist, the piston of interchanging motion will continue to expand and contract sequentially. When each has found equilibrium by voiding the other, motion will immediately cease and work can no longer be performed. Science says that cold is less heat. One might as appropriately say that female is less male, or that south is less north. Science says also that there is no compensating uphill flow of energy to balance its downhill flow. There is an uphill flow. Otherwise, a downhill flow would not be possible. Every wave is a compression-expansion pump. The whole universe is a giant pump. The two-way piston of the universal pump constitutes the universal heartbeat. A one-way universe is as impossible as a one-way pump is as impossible. The compressed condition of this universe is exactly equal to the expanded condition. The compressed condition is gravitation. The expanded condition is radiation. Gravitation and radiation are equal opposites. Each is helpless without the other. In fact, each condition is impossible to produce without simultaneously producing the other. Heat is the effect of multiplied resistance to the compression of gravitation. Cold is the effect of the opposite strain of resistance to evacuation or emptiness, which results from the expansion of radiation. There is as much cold in the great expanses of space as there is heat in the compressed suns in all of this universe. There is not 1 ampere of difference between these two opposite conditions of the electric workers in the whole of the universe, nor is there 1 milligram of weight in it which is not balanced between the two. The universe of electric waves is divided into wave fields. Each wave field is equally divided by contraction of gravitation and expansion of radiation. The potential of solids in a wave field is equally compensated by the potential of space which surrounds the solids. It is as impossible to unequalize these two conditions in any wave field or produce either one of them separately without simultaneously producing the other, as it would be to polarize one end of a bar magnet without producing an equal pole of opposition at the other end. This wave universe is divided into wave fields. Each wave field is an electric battery which is forever being charged by the centripetal polarizing power of gravitation and discharged by the centrifugal depolarizing power of radiation. This process is a manifestation of the life-death, growth-decay principle which is ever present in every effect of motion in nature without exception. Together they constitute the electric action-reaction sequences without which there would be no universe. It is not true to nature, therefore, to say that either heat, cold, compression, expansion, or any other expression of motion is energy. If the power to cause motion is the unbalanced state of rest, it necessarily follows that the energy is in the stillness of rest and not in motion, which is the effect of cause. The mind of the Creator is the fulcrum from which the wave lever of mind thinking extends to express energy of creative mind. Thought waves cannot therefore be the energy which causes them to become thought waves. Any lever is powerless without a fulcrum. The power to move lies in the fulcrum which never moves. All motion starts from a point of rest, seeks a point of rest, and returns in the reverse direction to its starting point of rest. Test this fact by throwing a ball in the air, breathing in and out, pulling a chain, or walking. Electrical effects of motion are not energy. Matter in motion is a marionette on the end of 2 mind-controlled electric strings.